Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Today I am here to talk about all the books that I read in the month of July. I did complete 10 books in the month, which is way more than I thought I was going to have when we were about halfway through the month. At that point, I only had a couple read so far, but I did end the month with 10 books completed, and I'm very happy about that. I have 5 books for Catchupathon, which I will talk about in a minute and tell you the pie that I made for Ketchupathon, which is a readathon that I host with Amy from Amy's Bookish Life, where we try to catch up with a portion of our TBRs. Originally, it was started to catch up on your Book of the Month books, and that is what I did this time. But before we get into the Catchupathon books, the Book of the Month books, I will share with you the one book that I read from my Flip and Roll TBR. So the only one that I read that was actually on my TBR this month was The Quiche of Death by M.C. Beaton. This is the first in a new mystery series, the Agatha Raisin mystery series, and it was a lot of fun. Agatha has left her job, her position in London, to move to the Cotswolds, I want to say, is really struggling with small town life. She enters a quiche that she bought at a store into a competition in order to help connect with some of the people in town. Someone brought her quiche home, and the husband of that couple who brought her quiche home ended up dying. And so she is now a suspect involved in this mystery. Her quiche killed somebody. What happened? She knows she didn't make the quiche, so she gets involved with helping to discover what happened and their secrets, and she's still unsure about this town, but I'm pretty positive she's going to end up staying there. We'll see as the series goes on. I will continue in this series, but not right now because I have multiple other historical mystery series that I'm reading. And so I would like to continue because I did like Agatha. She's an older main character. She's snarky. She is not like a sweet grandma. She is sarcastic and speaks her mind, smokes, curses. Like she is just a snarky grandma, and I'm here for her character. I really enjoyed it. So I will continue the series, just not right away. Then I have 3 books that I read that were on my summer TBR. I'm very pleased that I created a list of about 10 books that I felt were very summery, and 3 of them got read in the month of July. First off, one of them is because this was my Patreon book club book this month, and that is Every Time I Go on Vacation Someone Dies by Catherine Mack. This was a fun novel. I don't think it's a new favorite. It's not staying on my shelves. I'm giving it a 3.5, rounding it up to 4 on Goodreads. And the main reason that it's not a favorite is that I didn't really like most of the characters, and I didn't like our main character. So this is the start of a trilogy, or at least what is now a trilogy. Eleanor is our main character, and I just didn't care for her, so I will not be continuing the series. But Eleanor is a mystery author, and she writes her first novel after a trip that she takes to Italy, where she gets involved, has an affair with a man in Italy, and together they solve this heist crime. And she writes her first novel kind of about that experience. She changes all the other names and places except for Connor, this guy that she had an affair with, and he blackmails her because there's more about this heist than meets the eye, and she knows it, and so he blackmails her into receiving some of the profits because her book does fantastic. So now we're 10 years later. There's a tour with people who are connected to the publishing house, other authors, Connor, his ex-wife who wrote a memoir about the man behind the man in the book, and others involved as well. And Connor thinks that someone is out to kill him. And then Eleanor feels like her life is in danger as well and experiences some crazy things. It's very fast-paced. They're humorous. There's lots of funny parts. Very sarcastic at times. This book is full of footnotes where Eleanor, the narrator, breaks the fourth wall and talks to us as readers and helps us figure out clues along the way and different things. I know from hearing in our book discussion, those who read it in print got really annoyed with the footnotes. I listened to the majority of this on audio, and the footnotes just blended in with the rest of the book, so they didn't bother me that much. But I have discovered that I don't love the breaking of the fourth wall. I think the purpose of it is to draw people in and make you feel like you're part of the story. But for me, I already do that on my own. And so when the narrator stops to talk to me, it takes me out of the story and makes me feel distant from the story. So I don't love the breaking of the fourth wall, but it was a fun read and very summery, very Italian. They kind of travel all over in Italy. It's definitely not a new favorite, but it was a fun read. And for those who care, there is a little bit of language in there that was not necessary. Also on my summer TBR was The Late Bloomers Club by Louise Miller, and I did read this in July. It was a shorter book. I read this for a deck of TBR-a-thon. So we follow Nora, who works in this small town and has worked at the diner that she owns for quite a long time. She and her sister discover that this older woman in town passes away and leaves them her house and her inheritance. So the sister, who's an aspiring filmmaker and actress, thinks this is the answer to all of her problems. They're going to sell the house. It can fund her next project. But Nora's like, we can't just get rid of the house that easily. It's really a story about these two sisters and how they work through this new inheritance together and how they work through some bumps in their relationship, the way that they interact now as adults with each other. There's a bit of a romance in here as well. This is another one that I enjoyed. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars on Goodreads. I don't know, 3.5, 4 stars, but I don't think it's going to be a new favorite or remember it very much, but I did enjoy it. It was a nice kind of women's fiction story about these sisters in a small town. And the third book I read off of my summer TBR, I really enjoyed. It's Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I really enjoyed this one. For those who are looking for more sweet romances, this is an author that I would recommend looking into. I think if there was a bedroom scene, it was a totally closed door. There was no details about anything along those lines. So I did appreciate that about this one. In this one, we follow Allie, who is kind of struggling with life. Her mom passes away 2 years ago and she really has not gotten over that. Then her husband leaves her and she doesn't even want to put jeans on. No hard pants for Allie. She wants soft and gentle and takes care of herself in that way. But her friends are kind of pushing her to move on or continue to live, basically. So she's out walking her dog one day and the dog pees on some guy and claims him, basically. And so she decides she's going to have a summer fling with this guy, no strings attached. They're going to go out on dates. They're going to have a lot of fun, get to know each other. And she's also a single mom dealing with her kiddos. But of course, it's a rom-com. There's going to be more to it than just a summer romance, but I thought this was a lot of fun. I liked Allie. I liked her friendships. And it was a quick read. I think I read the whole thing in one day and it was exactly what I needed as a break from all of my book of the month books. So that was a lot of fun. And I will read more from Annabelle Monaghan for sure. I have one book that I read on my Kindle, Murder at Donwell Abbey. This was on my TBR maybe January or February, but it was the second in a series. So I had to read the first one first. And now I'm finally getting back to it. And I've been reading it on my Kindle for quite a long time. This is a cozy mystery set in the setting of Emma from Jane Austen. Emma Knightley is our amateur sleuth. Her husband, George, spoiler if you haven't read Emma, George is the magistrate of the town and someone dies. Emma and George's butler is framed for the crime because he is Irish Catholic, I believe, and everyone else in town is not. And they are trying to clear his name. And so Emma puts herself in danger, puts herself at risk. There's also like a smuggling ring that's talked about in this one. It's fun just to revisit like Miss Bates and her dad, who is always afraid of someone catching a cold from the drafts, and her sister, who's just like her dad, and George and Emma themselves, and kind of seeing them as happily married and what that's like. I just really enjoy being with these characters in a totally different way than we were in the book Emma. So I enjoyed this one very much and look forward to seeing if there's more in the series. I honestly don't know. But this was a NetGalley book as well, so that's nice. I can now write a review and work on that NetGalley ratio. And now I'm going to switch gears and talk about the 5 books that I read for Catchupathon. They are different than the ones I originally said I was going to read, but I was still able to build the same pie. I just moved things around a little bit. So when I originally made my Catchupathon TBR, I wanted to have an apple pie, shortbread crust, crumble topping, ice cream on the side. Yeah, and I was able to still do that. So the first prompt was sweet or savory, and for a sweet book, you had to read a book that's a go-to genre or a go-to book in some way. So I'm counting This Book Made Me Think of You by Libby Page as my sweet prompt. This is a bookish book that deals with grief. It is absolutely my go-to genre, absolutely things that I love. And this is going to go in my favorites of the year basket. I really loved this story. There is a bit of a romance in here. I loved the romantic interest. So the premise is that our main character, Tilly, her husband passes away. And a couple months later, she receives a phone call from a nearby bookstore. And her husband has arranged for her to receive 12 books, one a month for a whole year, shortly after, like he dies in like the fall. I forget. So from January to December, she's going to receive 12 books. And each of these books impacts her in so many different ways. And she's at first shows up and was like, just give me all 12 books and I'll just take them home. And the store owner, who is the romantic interest, he says, no, your husband arranged that you have to come in once a month to get the books. And so she kind of goes through this whole year and this whole process of healing and rediscovering herself and reevaluating what life is going to look like after now the death of her husband, who she loved very much. So yeah, it was lovely. There were books like Matilda. There was a cookbook. There was a lot of fun books that were talked about. It's a very bookish book, but it also really delves deep into the grief aspect of things and also how to move on and open your heart to continue living life afterwards and being open to a new relationship. It was beautiful. I teared up multiple times, cried a little bit towards the end. I just absolutely loved this book. Made me think of you. So good. So that's my sweet go-to. The next prompt category is crust. So I wanted a shortbread crust, which has lighter color cover. And so I'm counting this because the whole background is white, even though this is darker. The whole background of this is white, which is a lighter color, so I'm counting it as my shortbread crust. For Deck of TBR-thon, had to read a series book, so this was only 1 point. It was about one of the only series books that I had as an option on my Book of the Month shelf. So I did read We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. I was really looking forward to trying this because I love the Thursday Murder Club mystery series by him. This is not connected to that series at all. It's its own thing. We follow Amy Wheeler, who is a bodyguard. She's very good at her job, but she's on an island, a tropical island, guarding this very famous author, older woman author, and something goes awry. And she needs the help of her retired private investigator father-in-law. So she calls up Steve, who she's very close with. They have a really good friendship. They talk on the phone all the time. She makes sure he's eating and taking care of himself. They're very close. Steve is retired and he still does odd jobs looking for people's cats or just kind of lost wallets or things like that. But it's been a while since he's been involved with anything quite as big as what he gets roped into with Amy. But he loves his daughter-in-law, so he hops on a plane and he heads to this island. And Steve and Amy and this woman who Amy is guarding end up on this adventure all over, trying to avoid being killed themselves and also to solve the mystery before they die on their own. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. It was a quick read, and I'm definitely interested in reading more mysteries in this series following Steve and Amy and their adventures and all that they get up to. I thought there was funny parts. It was a good mystery. It was a lot of fun. And I wasn't expecting to read that, so that was really cool. Then for filling, I needed a book set in America, and so I picked up another one that was unexpected, Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward. This was another one because of Deck of TBR-thon, where I had to pick a random color generator, and it gave me this yellow color and was perfect match. So I did read Let Us Descend, which was a very heavy and darker read. It was a very emotional read at the beginning, and then it turned weird. So we follow Anise, who is an enslaved young woman who gets sold to a landowner or whatever in Georgia. She lives in North Carolina, I believe, or Virginia, and has to take this horrible long march down to where they're going to live, which is down near New Orleans. We kind of follow along that journey, but Anise sees this spirit woman, like a storm spirit, and has lots of conversations with the storm spirit. So once it got talking about this mystical, like this spirit side of things, it got a little too weird for me. But I really love Jesmyn Ward's writing and her writing style. I think her writing is beautiful on a sentence by sentence level. Like there was things that she would put together or descriptions that she would use that just would blow me away. But the story itself did not blow me away. It was very slow, plodding along, very emotional and heavy, and sometimes over my head. the introspective, the thoughts, the conversations, the ways, the things that she would be talking about would just kind of go over my head. So it's not a new favorite. I have enjoyed some Jesmyn Ward books before, and I will continue to still read her, but this one was a bit of a miss for me. I'm giving it 3 stars, which is, I feel like, horrible because her writing deserves more than that. So the next category is toppings, and I chose a crumble topping for my pie, and for that I needed to find a book that I'm giving a second chance to. So I read Beyond the Point by Claire Gibson, which is quite a chonker. I'm calling it a second chance because this is my oldest book of the month on my shelves, and maybe during the first book of the month Catchupathon that we did, I read this in a try chapter. I read the first chapter and kept it on my shelves, but I haven't touched it in years. So I feel like it's a second chance. I got a second chance, and I read the whole thing this time, even though it's a chonker. Maybe this is what put me in a little bit of a slump. I don't know. But this was a beautiful friendship story. I really did like this. We follow 3 women who end up at West Point Military School and to play basketball. And these 3 women come from different backgrounds and different home situations, but they bond when they all become part of this team and become really, really good friends. And then we kind of follow their friendship past West Point, beyond the point. Some go into the military, some have injuries, some get married, and we kind of follow their friendship. And I felt like it was so realistic. Sometimes they would go a really long time without communicating, but then one of them would have something really important or tragic in their lives, and the other 2 would immediately be there to help out and to do what they can. Their friendship lasted, even though it wasn't talking on the phone every single day or whatever. They really had a deep connection with each other, and I just loved reading about their friendship. It was heartbreaking at times. It felt very real at times. It made me think of my friendships that I've had over my lifetime and the ones that I haven't talked to in a really long time, but every time I get a chance to talk to them, it feels like no time has passed at all. Like, that's just a reality for many people. And it was interesting to read about it through the lens of these three gals. I don't think I'm going to keep this book on my shelves. It's not a new favorite, but it was a really good read. And finally, for my sides, of course, I wanted some ice cream, which was a family-focused book. And I'm potentially stretching this a little bit, but I did read The Spectacular by Fiona Davis. We follow Marion, who's 19 in the 1950s in New York City, wants to be a dancer, lives with her sister and her father, and her dad doesn't think dancing is an appropriate decision or job for her, wants her to go to school, find a suitable career for a woman, or potentially get married and be a housewife and a mother. Marion pushes against that, goes on a whim. She was working at this dance school, gets let go, and on a whim goes to try out for the Rockettes and makes it, and becomes a Rockette at Radio City Music Hall. And of course, Fiona Davis's books always focus on a different building in New York, and so Radio City Music Hall is the building in this case. And in the 1950s, there was, for the past decade, a guy they called the Big Apple Bomber, who was going around bombing different places because he was disgruntled about the power company that he had been let go from or got sick from, or I don't even remember the details of that. But so the Big Apple Bomber is in play during this time as well. Marion pushes against her dad's refusal to let her dance and moves out, lives in a boarding house with other actors and musicians and women in the arts. We watch her become a Rockette, and we get to see a lot of behind the scenes and a lot about the Radio City Music Hall and what's on the different floors and the different levels. It was so good. It was so good. As always, Fiona Davis draws me right into her stories and makes me understand and see New York in different ways. But I just really enjoyed this story of Marion, the dancer, learning about her mom who had passed away and the life that her mom had lived, learning things about her dad, and still giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I mean, she definitely loves her dad, and her dad loves her. He's a little too controlling in his way of showing his love. He wants to try to protect and help his girls to be safe. But I really, really enjoyed this book by Fiona Davis. It was spectacular. So these are the 5 books that I read for Catchupathon, and I did do a try a chapter and unhaul 2 as well. So in total, I got 7 Book of the Month books off of my shelves, which I'm really excited for. And then here are the other 5 that I read. It was a really good reading month, which I was not expecting when July was going. It is a little tiny bit less than normal, but still 10 books is not shabby at all. I'm totally thrilled with that. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these books that I talked about today. Let me know what was one of your favorites from the month of July, and if you felt the same or differently than me about any of these, or if you're adding them to your TBR. And if you've made it to the end but you're not feeling chatty, go ahead and leave a big apple for New York, or a city skyline for New York City for the spectacular, since that's the last one that I talked about. I always love seeing who's here by those emojis. So even if you don't have the time or desire to comment, thank you for supporting my channel and helping other people to see it as well, so my channel can continue to grow and we can continue to build this wonderful little corner of the internet. I'm so appreciative of you for taking some time out of your day to hang out with me and to listen to me chat about these books. And I look forward to talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.